Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. I'll tell you what sucked, that basketball game. I enjoyed a terrible executed Michigan-UCLA game way more than that garbage, that slop that I saw out of the players in the Philadelphia 76ers uniform. It's bad. You know it is garbage when Furkan Korkmaz is the most noticeable guy due to effort. He wasn't good by any means. He finished 2 of 7 from the floor. So I'm not even praising the execution side of things, but in terms of second half, actually seeing someone compete, actually seeing someone battle, I thought he had the most impressive off-ball defense out of everybody on the whole team. Think about what situation you are in when Furkan Korkmaz is the most noticeable guy on the floor. Do you see how that is an issue? Because he's not a very intelligent basketball player. He's not a very talented basketball player. Yet here I am afterwards giving him the most recognition due to the fact that everybody else decided not to show up. Now, later you did see Maxey, and he definitely did a little something with his limited minutes, but without Furkan, I don't know if that spark is even raised for the bench. I know Mike Scott hit a shot, and Matisse Thybulle was in there, but once again, realistically, Furkan Korkmaz in the second half was where my eyes went to. Oh, what world is this? Is this for real? Am I dreaming? Are you sure this isn't a nightmare? Oh, jeez. For real. It all started, though, the downfall, as soon as the tip-off went up. Oh, you're playing the Denver Nuggets? I don't feel like playing hard today. And there's a big difference for me. When I talk about 82 games in a regular season, and then there's the nights where you don't really show up, but that's how the NBA works, it's more understanding when you go up against a team that has 10 wins, 12 wins, 14 wins, bad dumpster fire squads, and you overlook your opponent because you know you're an NBA championship team. You know you're going to go to the NBA finals, or you're going to go to the Eastern Conference finals, and you overlook your opponent because you know they are a disaster. That's different, though. And with or without Joel Embiid, I'm just disappointed with the lack of compete. They didn't want to go out there and play hard. And it's like, I know you don't have your big man, but at least give me a little bit of heart. At least give me a little bit more effort. Show me the grit. If you lose, you lose. It's not about falling to the Denver Nuggets without Joel Embiid and without George Hill, which was a big acquisition for you at the trade deadline. I really couldn't care less if they lost the basketball game. But the way it went, the optics, the fact that Ben Simmons was putrid, that was such a trash game out of Ben Simmons. And since the All-Star break, he hasn't been the same player. How do you have 7 field goal attempts against this team? And we talked about in the past the turnover issues that he has had. If you look at his game log, 7, 6, 6, 7, 7. It's been bad. In 26 minutes, he had 3 turnovers. So if he played closer to what he averages, you probably would have seen maybe 5. And if you start getting in that 5 category out of Ben Simmons, you're getting way too much for my liking. So only 3, but only 26 minutes. Because it was such a big blowout, and you allowed 44 points in the first quarter, 66% from the field, that it was such a big blowout you couldn't even play your stars later on in the game. And quite frankly, they didn't even deserve to because they weren't hustling. How many times did you see, Jamal Murray wax anybody, but Ben Simmons on both sides of the floor? That was an embarrassing game, and it really is unacceptable out of a player like Ben. Go downhill, attack, be aggressive. You got shut down, and it looked like they tried multiple different ways for him to be able to get going, and it wasn't working. You know, we know how teams like to build the wall and make him uncomfortable when he's the ball handler in slower areas of the game, when the game loses its speed a bit and it's half court. We know that. But when it comes to screening and when it comes to other areas, it's like, hey, Ben, why don't we try and get, you don't want to do that tonight either? Okay. You don't want to do that either? When will you want to? These are the frustrating moments. These are the ones that I can't accept. These are the ones that make my blood boil. Come on, Ben. Wake up. Show some fight. These are the matchups where you like these. You want to prove people wrong. And honestly, I look at Jamal Murray and Jokic very similar to the dynamic of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And not necessarily playing style, because Jokic is definitely different from Embiid. Jokic has that great facilitating. He's a phenomenal passer. Even though he didn't finish with too many assists tonight, that's what he does. You can operate him on the floor as a point general, if you will. So he has that aspect of the game. Murray has flourished after this breakout season that he had last year, where he has been unbelievable and sensational, and he's added so much to his repertoire in the way that he handles the ball, and he's dropping defenders insanely. I mean, you're seeing broken ankles, twisted ankles. I'd be able to take a charge with these and probably get some cookies, probably get some steals, but that's neither near here or there. When it comes to the way that they allowed Jamal Murray to abuse them, the way that they allowed the Nuggets to so easily get into their offense. How many times would they move the ball around, pass the ball perfectly in the paint, put it up for two? They were just passing the ball and getting it wherever they wanted to way too easily. There was no intensity on that end. How about getting beat on offensive boards? There's 3 Sixers around. Let me go grab the rebound. Oh, let me go run it out to the three-point line. Oh, nobody's defending me? Let me set my feet, square up my shoulders, think about it for 4 seconds, and then drill the shot. Nobody was closing out. And it goes on everyone, but I thought Ben Simmons specifically, a guy who, if you're not going to give me the offense, fine. I can praise your I can't praise your defense tonight? Oh, because you weren't willing to? There are some matchups that definitely make it tougher for Ben Simmons. It's normally that smaller point guard, flashy, speed. I thought he could have gave us more on the defensive end. But that doesn't excuse anybody else, starter-wise, that were pathetic in that area. Tobias Harris was late during some defensive possessions that led to some three-point shots. And Michael Porter Jr. in that first quarter, and all around, he finished with 27 points. And I remember at the time of the draft, I really wanted him. The fact that he fell, but I understood due to the back injury that you're talking about having a Joel Embiid recent draft, having a Ben Simmons recent draft, and you have all this drama surrounding the Sixers and taking these players, and these players getting hurt, and the players not actually being able to provide anything on the floor. And here you are, you're going to go out there and draft Michael Porter Jr. Like, I understood not doing it, but I also would have liked to seen him in a Sixers uniform, because we knew that there's some talent in there, right? You just had to tap into it a little bit, and it might have took maybe a season or two or whenever until he was able to become the best version of himself in that time frame. Their ceiling's even higher than we already see, but a realistic time frame of 1-2 years. Now look at the kid, and he looks like to be a serious talent. I was thinking about this. Do you think he thinks of the Sixers as a team that passed on him, so when they see the Sixers logo, maybe it fuels him a bit for him to deliver the way that he did? He fell to around 14, so there were so many teams that passed up, and I know that there's guys like Draymond Green who can recite the entire first round, and that's something that makes his blood go in, and that makes him approach the game differently, and he has a different sense of urgency and swag based off of that. I don't know if someone like Michael Porter Jr. fully looks at that the way that maybe we do, considering we only care about the Sixers. We're looking at the Sixers draft. We're looking at who they didn't take when a talent like him falls, and we view it differently than maybe he does. But who knows? There's a possibility that he attacks the floor differently, knowing that this is one of the teams that could have utilized him and could have drafted him, but that ended up not happening. I am curious, now that I am thinking about it, when exactly did he get drafted? What selection in the draft? He went 14th. Okay, I thought so. Just had to fact check myself. Sometimes we have to do that. I know it's not wanted. I know it's not what we try and do here, is have to admit we need to double check, but we went with the double check. Jamal Murray scored 30 points, and he was ridiculous. The plays that he made, as much as I want to ridicule the defense, which we deserve to do, because that is an unacceptable way to play the game of basketball, especially when that is who you are supposed to be. That is your motto. Some of the plays Jamal Murray made, it was flat out on him. That's great offense beating better defense. Not that the defense was special, but there were certain possessions where there's nothing you can do. that's why we talk about can elite defense beat elite offense when it comes to the playoffs. We're going to find out if the Nets and the Sixers ever match up. That's the matchup we are going to find out. But for the most part, 99% of the time, because of the way fouls are called, the ticky-tack league, the offense is going to shred the defense, and that's what you saw a few times when Jamal Murray is coming out and making plays, whether it's the half-court set or in the open floor. He was definitely a fun watch. I mean, in the back. Just like I said to Tobias Harris the other night when he scored 29 points, but the Sixers fell in his bag, and that's what you saw out of Murray. Now, with Tobias Harris, I saw this specifically in the first quarter when the Sixers were trying to get going a bit offensively. They were working through Tobias, and that's something that we have seen since Joel Embiid has not been available. Let's get Tobias going. He can use his back to the basket game. He can get to that mid-range part of the floor, and then he can change his body. He can be quick with his feet. He can square up the way that he wants to, whether he's fading away, shooting over the defender. We've seen it all out of Tobias lately. I saw the Denver Nuggets realize that and say, hey, let's apply pressure to Tobias. Let's force him to make certain decisions. And that's when I remember saying this in my brain. Wow, that was a Ben Simmons type of pass. What do I mean by that? He was dribbling, pick and roll game. They trapped him. He goes up. He's in midair, and he's trying to kick out, look around. He's looking in other areas to try and pass the basketball. He's trying to go in another direction, and it leads to a turnover. They forced Tobias Harris to make those quick second decisions with the ball, and it was resulting in some poor play. And that's why you were able to see Dwight Howard get going with those alley-oops, and he was able to get some nice plays early on because they were living with that. That was sort of the Nuggets' mentality and approach schematically in this game. Hey, if they end up getting it to Dwight Howard for a couple of these pick and rolls because they can alley-oop it and he's going to be wide open, fine. But let's make sure that Tobias Harris, who is going to be handling the rock, let's force him to do something here, and we'll see if we'll win that battle long term. And unfortunately for the 76ers, that's exactly what happened. I talked about Michael Porter Jr. Well, I have to bring up the lack of defense by Danny Green while that happened, because Danny Green was pretty damn brutal in that area. And you've seen some good spots out of him as of late after the All-Star break. You've seen his quickness with his hands. He's been getting more steals, and he's been doing better with his legs, I thought. But in this game, it was extremely noticeable how poor it was on that end out of him. And can you chalk some of this up to this is their fifth game in this road trip, and it takes a toll on your body? Not only that, we all understand how we stress the fact that you're in Denver, so there's all that with the air and things of that nature, but it's no excuse for the way you came out. Knowing that it is an opponent that is at the top of this league right now, and they have a lot of hype, and they have a lot of players on their team, and they're looked at as a squad that can make a serious run, how are you not ready to play this game? And that's why I tie it back to, like the Knicks of the past. This year, the Knicks play a little bit harder, the Tom Thibodeau effect. The Eastern Conference is so bad that somehow they're actually in play for a playoff spot in the top echelon of the Eastern Conference, like not 8, not 9. We're not talking about that category. They're flirting around the top, even though there's not a big separation from 4 to 8. But realistically, my point is, in years past against the Knicks, they were such a mess and such a joke that there's times where I can see overlooking a team led by Trey Burke. That is reality. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. I wish that wasn't the case, but I know it's the case. Different here. You're playing against Murray. You're playing against Jokic. You're playing against a team that had an awesome comeback in the playoffs last season against the Clippers. Your head coach, you would think that there would be like, hey, fellas, let's go out there and show a little fight. Let's go out there and give them everything we got. So then it's a statement, hey, with Joel Embiid, this is a different type of beast. When we do get our MVP back, we're going to be in another level. We're going to be, making sure it's a living hell for you, and you're not going to be able to get those same open looks, and the defense is going to change, and we're going to have a big man in the paint for you. And when we can't get possessions going offensively, we're going to utilize the big man, and it won't look as sloppy. But that wasn't the case. So the approach mentally and the way that they weren't mentally prepared, it's somewhat frustrating, because this is the type of game where you should be. You should be. The hiccups along the way, okay. I chalk it up throughout. Most of the time, I'm not an overreactor to regular season games is my point. So I understand it's not really that big of a deal, But I'm not going to hide the fact that on this specific night, it's very situational. Each game afterwards, I have a different feel, even if something similar happened, different opponent, different night, different circumstance. You get my case. I can't help but feel disappointed in the way that they felt like attacking this game mentally. And it showed right from the jump. You get down that big, all right, good luck digging yourself out of that hole. You can do whatever you want in the second quarter. Look what you did. It was so hard to watch. 44 points. Good luck, dude. Good luck. And one thing I hated about the offense not looking good and not really being able to get into any sort of rhythm is you had your primary ball handler. When you have your primary guy, it shouldn't look that atrocious, right? And we don't have to go through this every single time. Joel Embiid on the floor makes this offense completely different. But still, take that out. Ben Simmons being on the floor, you should be able to run more of your sets. You should be able to execute more of your game. Your offense should have some sort of oomph to it a little bit with Ben Simmons out there, a little bit more than you got tonight. If you lose Ben Simmons and now you're running your entire game through Seth Curry, which you've seen at times, now I can acknowledge the circumstance is different. Now I can see why the offensive sets are a little bit more sloppy. People are making mistakes. Maybe there's miscommunication. And you saw that with Dwight Howard and Ben Dwight. They had a little miscommunication, which led to something bad. And there goes the Denver Nuggets the other way. And okay, like that makes sense to me, right? You have a guy now playing with your starting rotation, and things change. So I get it. But all around, with Ben out there, the fact that I was that underwhelmed with the offense, it's like that's your guy. That's the one who's supposed to be distributing the ball. That's the guy that's supposed to get you open looks. And once again, you see a mismatch with Ben Simmons, and what's he elect to do? Let me stop. Let me look around. Let me give it to somebody else. We're really going to do that? And speaking of ball handlers, I thought Shake Milton, even though you can look at what he shot from the field after the game was over, and there were some shots there that I liked, 4 turnovers. And there were some really awful decisions made out of him when it came to distributing and when it came to trying to find some of his teammates. Some really poor decisions with the ball in his hands, and that's one of the problems I have with Shake Milton. You can't rely on him. If I ask you what you're getting out of Shake Milton the next night when they play the Cleveland Cavaliers, you have no clue. You have no idea. And I guess you could say the same with Ben Simmons. And my big conversation when I talk about this team and their possible chances of doing it, I always ask if Joel Embiid can make up for the flaws of Ben Simmons, because that's what superstars do in the playoffs. No team is perfect, but what you have is a LeBron James. What you have is a Kevin Durant. What you have is a Steph Curry. What you have is a Joel Embiid. You have players that can raise their bar so high that when other players on your team do have flaws, you make up for that. When Joel isn't out there and you see this version of Ben Simmons, it really makes me ponder, and it really makes me appreciate truly what more Joel Embiid does, because Ben like this is, we're getting back into that territory of when I cracked. That's realistic. I cracked for the first time in my Ben Simmons career earlier this season, where I was ready to trade him for Harden. I was ready to trade him for Beal. We're back in that territory again of we're getting into crack mode. Not smoking crack, of course. Let's not use this out of context. If you clip that, it could get a little scary. But it's getting into that, hey, But you can't argue when Joel Embiid is out there, it looks different. You don't need the same out of Ben Simmons. We demand more out of Ben when Joel's not there, as we should, but that's when it comes back to Ben Simmons isn't that guy. Ben Simmons is not that player. Ben Simmons is his own unique player. You need to admit that's what he is. And if Joel Embiid's not there, then you're not going to win anyway. Good luck. So it really only matters when Joel is there, and how do things look? How is it run? Is it smoother? Is it different because of Joel out there, the spacing on the floor, compared to a Mike Scott or because, you try and get Mike Scott out there to kind of space things out, but when Dwight Howard's out there, it messes up the spacing on the floor, which goes back to our whole entire conversation when the season even started. When you look at this team and the spacing of Seth and Danny Green and how that opens up everything for Ben Simmons, you see that too when just Dwight Howard's in there, who is someone who doesn't provide any sort of spacing, how things change so drastically. Spacing. It matters way more than I think people give it credit for, because roster construction to me stands out more than coaching and things of that nature. I touched on Shake, so why not with Tyrese, even though I sort of mentioned him earlier on. I thought Tyrese had some nice looking buckets where he had a little confidence in him. And I feel bad because one night it's 6 minutes, one night it's 18. One game it's 12 minutes, the next night it's 4. The next night it's do not play, the next night it's 15. It's so hard to get into a groove that way. I would like to see what Tyrese would be when it's not bad time, when it's not garbage time, when it's not, hey, it's a 15, 16, 17-point game with 5 minutes to go. I don't think he's ready. Quite frankly, I know he's not ready. Everyone knows he's not ready yet, but looking for something new, looking for a little spark, looking to see something, but at the same time, is this where you need to make those type of decisions? I feel it's backstretch time. Backstretch time is, all right, now we're starting to prepare. You're going to know your role. To me, there's a reason why maybe that's the case. That's the message from Doc Rivers. He's not it yet, all right? We like him. He's going to grow into something nice. He's going to grow into something that we can definitely utilize, and we can maximize his skill set as he grows. But it's not happening now. Right now, it's rotation time. Right now, it's, hey, this team's going to make a run. How are we going to best do that? What's the proper way to do it with our personnel? Very unfortunate, though, that we didn't get that Joel Embiid-Jokic matchup, because that would have been insanely fun to watch. Very competitive, very emotional. I'd imagine Joel Embiid showing a lot of passion out there. And I guess we'll get more information after this road trip ends. With George Hill, they did say something pretty damn fascinating, because when you look at how many games are left in the schedule, it's almost like they were anticipating, hoping to get 10 games out of him heading into the postseason. And they trust that out of the veteran because he's been around the block. It's not going to take someone who's so experienced a lot of time to get comfortable and to kind of figure out his groove, figure out like, okay, this is my role. They understand where he's at in his career, that they kind of have those expectations for him to it not being a long learning curve. I'm not disagreeing with that, but it is pretty wild that you get George Hill and it's like, hey, we're hoping to get 10 games out of him and then we're going to rock right into the postseason. It's not the easiest adjustment in the world, where you have to learn your role, learn how Joel Embiid plays, learn what it's like in these half-court sets if you're going to be a player coming down the stretch for this team. And I bet your ass he's going to be, because of what we see out of Ben Simmons during this All-Star break play, post-All-Star break play, I should say. You know, George Hill is going to be a factor there. He's probably going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to be a key piece. We'll see how many games he does play, though, and I guess, you know, after this Cavs matchup, and it's a pretty decent matchup for me in terms of, for this Cavs game, you have two bad losses. Not bad losses, because we know what's happening here, but you have two losses. You're coming off for two losses, losing the energy, kind of losing the body language a bit, not popping as much. You're going to play Cleveland, a team that you should annihilate. Let's see it. And this is why I go back to, it matters where that falls in the season. When I chalk it up to one of those, to me, this Cavs game won't fall in the category of one of those, because of what has happened previously here, where there should be a different focus level. There should be a different level of determination. There should be there should be a sense of urgency. Let's be realistic. So it's different if you win 3 straight games, then you lose to the Cavs. Well, it's one of those nights, all right? You move on to the next night, you beat the Pacers, and then that game's forgotten about. But this, all right, there's a little bit of a storyline. There's a little bit of a backdrop with it. I want to see it differently. I also want to see the ending of March Madness, okay? Because it's coming down to the wire, and it's going to be super entertaining. As that Michigan game just ended, I can't believe Michigan fell. Juwan Howard, whew. I would have loved to seen him get the job done in Michigan. But you have UCLA figuring it out. And why I'm saying this is because of DraftKings Sportsbook. And what's going on with DraftKings Sportsbook? Well, let me tell you. It started with 68 teams. Now, you have the final 4. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting new customers in the center of the action. Bet 100 on any tournament game, and if your team wins, you win $100. It's that simple. Turning $1 into $100 is 100 to 1 odds. Pick any college basketball team that's still in the hunt for your shot at winning $100. All it takes is $1. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Brodes when you sign up to turn $1 into $100. It's that simple. Use promo code Brodes to turn $1 into $100 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And you may be asking, Brodes, why the hell did it take you so long to spit that out in the beginning? Well, because I couldn't pull up the DraftKings read on my phone, and I was trying to search for it while talking, and I thought it sounded good, but then halfway through I realized, damn it, this is pathetic, and I got to be better. I feel like I'm the Sixers tonight, just not on my best performance in that area, in that moment in the podcast, and I got to be better. That was a Ben Simmons effort right there with the DraftKings read, and I apologize. In the beginning, at least. Once I got flowing, okay, the execution was fantastic. But I digress. Promo code Brodes. Don't forget that. Why don't we go to the Anytime Hotline and hear what you had to say after this loss? Here we go. Here we go.
Well, that sucked. This game obviously was decided in the first quarter. Like, guys, what's going on here? We can't defend? Not moving the ball? Turning the ball over? Oh my goodness, that was ugly. Nobody really wanted to score the basketball in this game. Nobody really was aggressive.
I guess Furkan was. Unreal. There was that one play, what was it, where he got the foul call because he did the Furkan Korkmaz pump fake, and he drew the defender, and he leaned in as he took the shot, and when he airballed it about 5 feet too short, then the Nuggets got possession, and the referees called the foul then. I don't know why I'm calling a timeout gesture. Like I said, I'm giving you a Ben Simmons effort, apparently. But it's like you saw that, and you saw him try and be aggressive. I mentioned the off-ball defense, which is really funny in my opinion, but at the same time, it's such a big blowout that changes the way. You don't get that same type of intensity out of Furkan or the same intensity out of the Denver Nuggets if it's a 2-point game, if it's a one-possession game. So I'm not out here trying to go too far, going to the too extreme here with Furkan. This is probably, though, the most ever I've ever given this guy praise. But the caller mentioned no one wanted to score. I did, believe it or not, because everyone else was so embarrassing. All the guys that I expected to have a good performance, they were so awful to put my eyeballs on that when I saw Furkan take it to the rack and willing to take shots, and it looked like he was playing with a little bit of attitude out there compared to everybody else. Maybe it was because everyone else's levels were so low. If everyone was at 1 and Furkan was at like 4, well, it's still bad, but it's just not as terrible as others. And I love this. 2 of 7. Furkan was literally 2 of 7. And here I am praising that type of offensive effort. But I think that really does, if you take a few steps back, it really does show you where this Sixers team was tonight in this first quarter and with the starters that you really needed to rely on here. They didn't show up, and it was bad right from the opening tip-off, and it was garbage. It was one of those ones where you just shake your head, you're out of it. It's hard to stay engaged, but you are staying engaged because you want to see what Doc Rivers does. And he made a statement. We're going with the bench. You know what? You don't want to play? You guys, Ben, Tobias, Danny, Seth. No? Didn't feel like clocking in today? All right. We'll just rock with the young ones. We'll rock with the young cats. We'll let Paul Reed go out there, B-ball Paul. We'll let Mike Scott go out there, older veteran, but hey, if he's going to make his shot, hey, let's put him out there. Let's give everybody else out there because they were actually competing. You? Nah. Come on.
The effort was absolutely not there tonight, which was very disappointing, and this is the second time in the past 2 games that we've seen them just refuse to defend three-point shooters, and they've paid the price for it. On offense, things stagnated pretty quickly, especially if shooters aren't hitting their shots, and the bench really didn't help either. It also felt like they went in there without really a game plan on what to do. They did a good job forcing the ball out of Jokic's hands, but at the cost of letting guys get wide open looks.
The wide open looks thing, It was really just annoying, right? Because when you see the Nuggets go get a rebound from there, sometimes I saw people take a shot and then go outwork everyone to get their own rebound. I mean, that is seriously something that just flat out can't happen. But when the Nuggets would get an offensive board or they would get another look or they're passing the ball around, the time and space that these shooters had to think about it and to actually process it, close out. Where are you going? It's minor. It's like it's minor things that caused those hiccups to happen. Simple closeouts, simple defensive assignments that you misunderstood or you mismanaged. I even put this out in the middle of the game. I tweeted it out, and you can follow me at Brodes81. Right now I'm giving away an Eagles pullover, Eagles windbreaker pullover. That is beautiful. You do not want to miss out on that opportunity. It actually ends tomorrow on Wednesday. But I'm also giving away, every Wednesday I do this, the Hump Day giveaway, a Bryce Harper jersey. You will not want to miss it. Make sure you get involved. But I brought up Twitter because, I tweeted out. The Flyers defense is actually greater than what the Sixers defense gave us in this game. Think about that statement. And the fact that you can at least make the argument, oh, no, come on. Yup. The fact that you can actually make the argument, that's the scary thing.
All right, brothers. I'm here. The Sixers lose to the Denver Nuggets by about 8-10 points here. I think it's the instant after the game. The Nuggets, they played really good in the first quarter, not going to lie, but if I was the coach, I would be disappointed in that second, third, and fourth quarter. They did not play good at all. I mean, no, the Sixers played terrible, but the Nuggets only played good that first quarter.
I don't think that the coach is going to be upset with what the Nuggets did tonight. Yeah, the second half kind of was a little bit in favor. If you look at the box score, right, the third and the fourth, okay, the Sixers scored more points. And I think in the fourth quarter, the Nuggets only scored about 16 or so. But you had such a big blowout, such a big lead. The fact that you forced the opponent to go to their bench guys, to go to guys like Tyrese Maxey and B-Ball Paul. Like, if you're the opposing coach, and you did have Murray out there late, you did have some of the starters out there late for a reason, but I don't think that you're going to look at it like, hey, you guys only had one good quarter. Now, a few nights ago, that happened with the Sixers where they were so bad and they had one good quarter, and then they were a disaster again, and I said, like, hey, you can't just be satisfied with one good quarter. But the circumstances are different when you put away a team the way that the Nuggets did. They put away the Sixers, and then naturally towards the end, you let off the gas a bit because you know you got them where you want them. Mike Scott's out there. B-Ball Paul's out there. Like, you got them where you want them to. So you handle business, you took care of business, and you got the win. It's a different mentality, right? Everything has its own storyline behind it, its own. Like, each circumstance is different. You got to apply different logic to each one. It's never a set logic just based for every single outcome. There is so much involved. The second level thinking is real. And that's why I think for the Nuggets, like, yeah, the first quarter for 44 points, that was the one quarter that they played way better, and then the other quarters weren't the same. But you can't expect your team at the same time to shoot 66% from the field. You can't expect your team to score 44 points in a quarter constantly and that be who you are that night. You are going to fall back to reality a bit. You are going to hit more of the mean, more of the average of who your team is. 44 is outrageous, right? There's a reason why we look at it the way that we do. Like, wow, you allowed 44 points. How could you possibly do that? There's a reason why we feel that way towards it, because it's not something that is sustainable. It's not something that you see more times or not. My point is, it's a little crazy to think that the Denver Nuggets would be disappointed with their outcome because of maybe it getting a little bit closer than they wanted to when some of your deeper bench were in from the Sixers. You expect a push from deeper bench guys because they're fighting for their lives and they're trying to prove something. So it kind of is what it is from that perspective, and we'll see how they play against the Cavs. You know, it is going to be a little telling to me to see their approach to it all and the way they come out right from the tunnel. It really is. Before we end this, let me tell you about my friends over at DeSimone Jewelers. I went to them for my fiance's engagement ring, and it was the best experience I ever had, to the point where Christmas, absolutely. Birthdays coming up and anniversary, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. It's a no no-doubt-brainer. I am going back to D. Simone Jewelers. They're the best in the business. They're a family-owned business with 40 years of experience, over 40 years, I should say. They moved from Jewelers Row to Haddonfield, New Jersey. They don't use sale tactics. They show you options, and they educate the customers. They treat their customers like family. They customize and manufacture every ring that they make from start to finish right there on location. And because of that, they're able to beat their competitors' prices. I've sent a ton of family members and friends in their direction. I constantly hear back the same thing. Brodes, you're a genius. They're the best. And you'll know exactly what I mean when you go in there and say, hey, Brodes sent me. All their information is down below. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.